Hi everybody, welcome to the first installment of Sip and Simmer with me, Anita Manager. So tonight we're going to start with, this is only going to be about positivity. There's enough negativity going out there today and we're all stuck at home, so let's focus on the good things and not focus on anything scary or upsetting because this is being done to have a good time. So, speaking of being stuck at home, not everybody has a safe or understanding environment at home. So I want to encourage everybody who doesn't feel safe at home or doesn't feel understood or needs somebody to talk to reach out to Free Mom Hugs. My personal favorite chapter is Free Mom Hugs Connecticut, and you can find them on Instagram and Facebook, and they're just the most wonderful people, and not all hugs need to be in person. And since we're practicing not touching each other right now, we can do virtual hugs and talk to somebody that can help us. Free Mom Hugs is also great because it's not all about the kids, it's also about the parents. If you feel like you don't know how to connect with your kid, or if you want to learn better coping mechanisms, they're just a great organization to connect with. Also, the founder, Sarah Cunningham, has a book. It's called How We Sleep at Night. I read it in about 2 hours. I cried a lot. It was a really good read, and it made me understand a lot of what parents also go through when kids aren't being understood. Okay, now that the serious stuff is out of the way, we're gonna move on. We're gonna start with sip. I'm going to make an espresso martini because I like to drink when I bake and drink when I cook and drink when I'm at home, and I just like to drink. So what you're going to need is a martini glass. If you don't have a martini glass, you can use a water glass, you can use a wine glass, you can use a bucket, anything that you need to just get all of the liquid into the vessel and then into your mouth. So I have all of the ingredients lined up over here, and I have a shaker right here, and my lovely assistant is gonna get me some ice, right, Nick? Okay, so to begin, we are going to get some ice because she's not 100% prepared. Okay, so before I even go on, I was gonna say this after this, mise en place. That is the most important part about doing anything in the kitchen. Mise en place means everything in place or put into place. And the reason that you put everything into place is so you don't have to pause and get ice. And also it makes cooking and baking and mixing drinks a lot easier. So we're gonna start with, we have a 1/2 ounce of vanilla syrup, and then we're gonna put that into the sink. We have creme de cacao, and we have 1/2 ounce of that. We have 1 ounce of Kahlua. My favorite part of this recipe is we have 2 ounces of vodka. From there, we are going to put in 1/4 ounce of half and half. And the last ingredient is going to be a fresh shot of espresso. Now, while Aaron pulls that delicious shot of espresso, I'm gonna start with, you don't need fresh espresso. He's not gonna like when I say this, but you could also use powdered espresso, mix it in a little hot water, let it cool down a little bit, and throw it in. Espresso is espresso is espresso. When it comes to a beverage that is chilled and full of liquor, espresso doesn't matter. Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you for paying attention, Kristen. We're gonna move on. Okay, so we're gonna start with a shout out to everybody that popped in the beginning. We have Macy, Jen, Ellen, my mom, Desiree.
Oh, that's it.
And that's it. That's where we're starting right now. My dogs, Ruby and Cooper, are saying hello. And now that I have my fresh shot of espresso pulled, we're gonna pour that into all the liquor, and we're going to give it a nice hearty shake. The dogs are feeling left out because usually I pay more attention to them. Okay. We're going to then pour that directly into our martini glass. And we're gonna top it with a garnish of fresh coffee beans. And when you have nails, they are not easy to pick up. There you go. And that is a very simple espresso martini. I'm not even gonna get a straw for this. This is delicious. All right, so we're going to move on. Okay, so like I said before, mise en place. Everything in place, everything is measured out for you. So already on the counter, I have my sugar, my flour. I've got eggs, I've got salt, I've got a lot of baking powder, we'll get there. I have melted butter, I have melted shortening, anisette flavoring, and I'm going to go back to the beginning and tell you that we're making anisette cookies because they make me feel great, they make me think of Christmas, and they make me feel all warm inside, and they also taste a little bit like alcohol, and who doesn't like that? All right, so I've got my 2 bowls. I'm going to take my melted butter and my melted shortening that was melted before I started this. Okay, so the most important part about getting this part done is having the shortening and the butter melted because you really want to incorporate the sugar into the fat. Okay, and then we're going to mix the sugar and the butter and the shortening all together. And this should be really incorporated because if it's not, you're not going to get an even distribution of the sugar. Okay. Now, typically when I'm baking, I really like to use my KitchenAid mixer, but for something like this, I'm not really a big fan because it gets really sticky and it gets stuck to the side of the bowl and everything doesn't get mixed up together. So today, I'm going to use my hand mixer. Once we have all of that incorporated, we're going to do the eggs, but we're going to do the eggs one at a time. The reason that you do this is because one, the butter and the shortening is hot and you don't want to have scrambled eggs. And 2, you want to make sure that everything is being incorporated. So, like I said, we've got 4 eggs. And I'm not really mixing this that well, but you get the idea. Personally, my favorite part about baking at home is the fact that I'm married and my husband does the cleanup because I do all the baking and the cooking. So I can just make a mess and just throw it all over the place and he gets it. So, I plan on doing these every day for you while we are at home together. And as we all know, that baking and cooking ingredients are not cheap. So, if you'd like to help out and shoot me a Venmo, my Venmo is Anita_manager, and I will be able to bake whatever you want. We can cook, I can make really expensive drinks, and I won't have to go to the poorhouse since both of my jobs have been canceled for the time being. Okay, so we've got our wet stuff all mixed together, and now we're gonna move on to our dry stuff. I have, what do I have here? I don't even know. Okay, so we did half a cup of butter, a quarter cup of shortening, and 3/4 of a cup of sugar, along with 4 eggs. In this bowl, we have the dry stuff. We have 3 cups of flour. This sounds really intimidating, but trust me, you don't taste it. We've got 5 teaspoons of baking powder. And then we have half a teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to mix all of that together. Again, you want to make sure that you mix everything individually. If you don't mix it individually, you're not going to get the baking powder incorporated, and it's going to get some of them like super fluffy, and some of them are going to be super flat, and the ones that have too much baking powder are going to taste like baking powder, and that's disgusting. Okay, so from here, we're going to go back to our wet ingredients, and I like to hold off on incorporating the flavoring because I feel like you lose some of it. Anisette is a very specific flavor. It kind of tastes like black licorice, And I feel like if you incorporate that into the wet ingredients too soon, you're gonna lose that flavor. So I'm going to give this a little shake and pour in my 2 teaspoons of anisette flavor. Give that a little mix. Okay, now from here, you're going to incorporate just a little bit of the flour mix at a time. If you try and do it all at the same time, it's gonna get super rubbery and you're not gonna be able to mix it all together. So, I like to do about half a cup at a time, and then you're gonna really incorporate that together. So you're gonna do that half a cup at a time until all of your dry ingredients are mixed into your wet ingredients. And then you're gonna wrap it in saran wrap and you're gonna put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. With TV magic, I've already got some prepared. So when it comes out of the refrigerator, it's gonna be pretty much the consistency of pizza dough. So it's going to be a little bit firm, but that'll make it a lot easier to shape into the balls. I like to use an ice cream scoop when I am measuring because it's really important for your cookies to be the same size. If they're not the same size, the same thing as not mixing everything else earlier. Some will be undercooked, some will be overcooked, some will be too brown, some will be chewy on the inside, and we don't like raw eggs. There's nothing good about raw eggs. So I like to get the scoop, make a ball, and that's it. It's super easy, and it's a lot of fun to do if you have kids. So you're gonna get usually 2 trays out of this recipe. I like to use an ice cream scoop that's about 1.5 tablespoons. So once all of these are all dosed out, you will be able to put them in the oven. Now, I have a convection oven, and I like to use the convection for a lot of my cookies, but not for the anisette cookies. So anisette cookies tend to be a little bit drier. If you use a convection oven with anisette cookies, they get really dry and they're kind of like a sponge. So I like to put my oven on 350, not convection, and you're gonna bake them for about 10 to 12 minutes. If you have a gas oven, it's probably gonna be a little bit on the longer side, and an electric oven is going to be a little bit on the shorter side. The reason being that an electric oven has more of a consistent, even heat, as opposed to a gas oven that gets bursts of heat when you turn it on and when it tries to regulate the temperature. Okay, so I'm just about finished getting my cookies out onto the tray. And you're gonna wanna evenly spread them apart and then put them in the oven for, like I said, 10 to 12 minutes at 350. And if that wasn't the shortest 10 minutes of your life, can we talk about how beautiful these are? So when they're done, they're gonna be a little bit brown on the bottom. They're gonna still be white on top, and they should have cracks in them. That just means that the air was released and that they're the right consistency on the inside. If the cookies aren't cracked, that means that they're underdone and probably chewy and raw on the inside. So, after we've let them cool to room temperature, which usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour, this part is personally what I feel the most important part about paying attention to these cookies, because if they're still warm when you ice them, the icing is gonna be absorbed right into the cookie, and they're not gonna be frosted, and they're just going to be soggy messes and ugly, and we don't like ugly things. Anyway, so in our bowl here, I have 2 cups of powdered sugar. Here I have 2 tablespoons of whole milk, And then I'm going to, this is my little trick because I love the flavor of anisette. What you can do is you can do 3 tablespoons of milk into the powdered sugar and just leave it as is. But if you do 2 tablespoons of milk with 1 tablespoon of anisette, you really get that flavor in there. So I'm just gonna put in about a tablespoon there. And then I'm going to just pour all of that in there. This is gonna be a little bit tacky. It's gonna be a little bit hard to mix. So I like to cheat and use literally all of my kitchen gadgets for every recipe. So this is my immersion blender that I just have the whisk attachment on. And I'm gonna turn it down really low because it's powdered sugar. And that's not low enough, so we're just gonna give it a little stir first. Okay, and now we're gonna give it a little. Okay, so that's all mixed. And it should be, I don't want to tell you what the consistency should be, but it should be a very thick and creamy white consistency. So that way when you dip them, all of the icing drips down the side of the cookies. Now, traditionally, oh, that's still really good. Okay, traditionally you put sprinkles on them. So you don't have to, but traditionally we put the nonpareils, the little round sprinkles. You throw those on. So what I do is I ice 3 of them, and then I start back at the beginning, and then I sprinkle them again. So you're just gonna take your cookie, dip it into the icing, and then it's gonna drip down the sides. So like I said, I do 3 at a time. And just before it starts to cool, I take a pinch of the sprinkles and I just sprinkle them on top. This takes about 15 to 20 minutes to really set the sprinkles because the milk, because of the fat content, really slows down the drying. So what you're gonna wanna do is not eat them until they're fully cooled because you're not gonna get that full anisette flavor. And that's literally the entire point of these delicious dry cookies. So I'm just gonna keep on icing. And then keep on sprinkling. You don't wanna put too many sprinkles because the point of the cookie is that they're light and airy and a little dry. If you put too many sprinkles, it makes them like super crunchy, which can be good, but it's not necessarily the point of the cookies. I hear that we are asking again for the Venmo. So my Venmo is Anita_manager. And again, I promise that money will go to tomorrow's episode and the following until we are back at work. And then you can come out and see me in person. So, as I continue to ice and sprinkle these delicious little cookies, I am just going to grab a tray to put them on. I am absolutely that annoying person that when you come to dinner at my house or tea or whatever, I'm going to plate absolutely everything and make my job 20 times harder. But it's so much nicer when you sit down to a meal or sit down to a snack and everything's just laid out in front of you. I just find it more appealing, and I also think that it makes the food itself look more appetizing. So typically I would like to use a plate that isn't white, but all of my plates are white. So it's a losing battle. And that is my recipe for anisette cookies. I am going to post the recipe and all of the ingredients and how long you bake, everything. And I will also be posting, can I have a towel? I will also post the recipe for this delicious Espresso Martini. It's really good, I'm telling you. And honestly, I have to say, what I was saying in the beginning about the instant espresso in hot water, I'm gonna get backlash for this. I like the instant espresso a little bit better because it has less of a tart aftertaste to it. It's a little bit smoother, but that's also because it tastes horrible if it's not in a cold drink. But I'm really not complaining because this is absolutely delicious. All right, so everybody, thank you for watching. I am going to be back tomorrow at the same time, 8 p.m. And I have a few ideas of what I'll be baking and what I'll be mixing. But if you have any ideas or suggestions, please comment underneath. Let me know what you want me to make. Let me know what you want me to drink. Let me know if you want it to be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. And again, I am going to give you my Venmo. And it is Anita _manager. And all of the proceeds will go to buying all of the ingredients for the recipes. And don't forget, you can follow me at Instagram at Mrs. Anita Manager, on Facebook, which I'm pretty sure you can find me. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night. Just tap the screen. just
It's still going?
you're just